And now, 15 minutes of stimulating talk and breaking news continues. This is the Charlie James Show.
The Charlie James Show.
Live and local.
From 106.3 WYRD.
Well, according to Reason, a new study suggests that mask mandates did not help the slow of COVID-19. In fact, there was a study, and maybe the same one, University of Louisville, saying that it really had very little effect on the spreading of the virus. Joining us right now is Paul Seegert, managing partner at PCS Advisers. Paul, welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
I tell you what, all we've heard for the past, I guess, a year now is wear a mask. No. Wear two masks. Wear a mask inside. Right. Wear a mask in the shower. Wear a mask wherever you go. Wear this mask. And now are we finding out that it really wasn't necessary after all?
Well, don't forget it started with don't wear a mask.
Exactly.
But yeah, but we've had a lot of mixed messaging, and the best we can tell, it slowed the spread by 1.5%. So
yeah.
It hasn't had a big, massive effect. And I think, unfortunately, we just really haven't had most of the people in the mainstream media who've been saying, let's follow the science, weren't following the science.
Right, exactly right. Because researchers compared COVID-19 case growth in 33 states that had statewide mask mandates on or around August 2nd with those that imposed mask mandates after that date, and they didn't have mask mandates at all. So there wasn't a whole lot of difference. Am I hearing there wasn't a whole lot of difference in the cases?
That's right. The trend lines were about the same, and it didn't really have much of an impact on the outcomes in terms of how quickly it spread, and then, of course, the results from that, hospitalizations and deaths, et cetera.
Right. Now, this research also looks at what happened in Texas, because with Neanderthal thinking, according to Joe Biden, Texas saw no case spike when it lifted its mandate. Do you think we're going to see the same with the vaccine or no?
Well, that's a really good point you're making. We're missing a lot of just fact-based, science-based conversation around this. There's 18,000 scientists actually that have signed on to a thing called the Barrington Accord, some of the best minds from Stanford and Harvard, who have signed on to this online petition basically saying, hey, why can't we have a scientific conversation around this topic? It's gotten so politicized. Here's a good example around the vaccines, like you mentioned. The fact that people do get immunity from having the disease is something that apparently is heresy to say.
Right.
Rand Paul, was really treated badly for saying he wasn't going to get the vaccine because he had already had and recovered from COVID, so he had immunity. And people are, criticizing him as though he's some kind of wackadoodle, right. When in fact, that is scientifically based. He is a medical doctor, by the way. It is scientifically based. And there are studies that have shown, going back to some of the hardest hit areas like Italy that were hit initially very hard by COVID, that those that had the disease and recovered have no more breakthrough infections than those who have been vaccinated.
Right, exactly. But I remember Dr. Robert Redfield, who I respect, but he was testifying before Congress, waving his mask, saying, this is going to save my life more than any vaccine ever will.
Well, that's it's about 97% of the COVID particles that are in your breath and so on have been shown to pass through all the masks that people wore. And N95 is one thing, but what we ultimately did was have people put on masks that were kind of a sign of virtue signaling more than a scientific, success.
You're right. We're talking with Paul Seegert, managing partner at PCS Advisers. So, Paul, and you just hit on something big, because it became almost like people were, and I'm using this word intentionally, devout in their wearing of masks. Right.
Well, you have people today that are vaccinated and are wearing masks outside. I'm a pretty avid jogger,
right?
And I have to chuckle. I was out jogging from my office today in the sunshine in a park, and I'm in California. A lot of vaccinated people here, and they're covering their face as I jog by. It's really unfortunate, I think, how much fear that we have put into the population, and not based on science. And it's interesting to watch when people are polled. Their political leanings will inform their beliefs about the science around this disease. You have people that really believe, because of the news that they consume, that if they get COVID, there's a 40 to 50% chance they're going to be hospitalized. Yeah. And that is a 10x exaggeration of the real risk.
Right. And in fact, I mean, we hear of a lot of people that get COVID, they didn't even know they had it.
That's exactly right. And they have immunity. Those mild cases have immunity. Every study that comes out continues to confirm this. It really would have been new science if that wasn't the case.
Right. It really would have been like that. Then we might have had a really serious, I mean, it's a bad problem, but it may have been a astronomical problem if you get the virus and don't have the antibodies built up. Right.
I mean, that would be crazy. So here we have, in fact, in this area of natural immunity, a couple things. LA is a great example to talk about, and we should do that. And then the fact that the CDC's own research, which is pretty conservative on the matter, and I think in part because it's a scientific organization, and obviously there's some political influence in there too, and I think they have to kind of defend some of their past, guidance. But they're very conservative in this area. There's other studies that put it much higher. They say 8 times more Americans have had COVID. Their own research shows 8 times more Americans have had COVID asymptomatically than tested positive. And we're over 30 million confirmed cases in the U.S. So 8 times 30 is 240, plus those 30, 270. That was the first goalposts we were given for herd immunity, which is why in the media today, we're not talking a whole lot about the numbers of people dying. We're not talking a whole lot about those who've been the high rates of hospitalization, because it's just not happening. And another point there, the LA thing. LA is trailing. We've got about 60% Americans who've had 1 dose of the vaccine, and that's pretty high globally. We're pretty much leading the way here. And so but LA, on the other hand, there are certain groups. If you break out ethnicity groups, et cetera, you can find higher and lower amounts of vaccine hesitancy. And LA is comprised of some groups that are more vaccine hesitant. They trail the rest of the country in getting vaccinated by about 20 points. So let's say the country as a whole, 60% have had a dose. 50% of us we just crossed that line, have been fully vaccinated. Right. And then you've got LA that's trailing in both of those categories by about 20 points. Yet LA is the poster child for low positivity rates for COVID. When they go out and randomly test the population, far below 1% are positive. How is that possible when they've done such a bad job vaccinating their population? And I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm just saying let's learn from what we've done here over the last year and just share the facts with the American people.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be novel?
There clearly is herd immunity, partly inferred as a result or achieved as a result of people getting and recovering from the disease, many of which didn't even know they had it.
You're right. Paul Seegert, Managing Partner, PCS Advisers. Always a pleasure to talk to you, buddy. We'll talk again soon. Thanks.
Thanks for having me again.
We'll be right back. It's the Charlie James Show, 106.3 WORD.